Hello and welcome to your go-to Detroit Pistons podcast, the Pistons Pulse, co-hosted by me, Bryce Simon of Motor City Hoops, a former D1 hooper and current teacher, husband, and father of 3 amazing kids.
And I'm Omari Sankofa, the second Pistons beat writer for the Detroit Free Press.
And of course, we're always blessed to be joined by our producer, Wes Davenport. If you are not listening to Wes and Blake Silverman on The Pin Down over on the Detroit Bad Boys YouTube channel, you absolutely should be. Of course, reading everything Omari and our guest are putting out on the Free Press. And a little shameless plug, the Motor City Hoops Substack, where I have the instant game analysis and notes. I dropped a video breakdown today of the last 6 minutes of the Game 2 victory on Monday night. Before we bring in our guy, Sean Windsor from LaGuardia Airport in New York City. This is our first time, so hopefully this will go well. If you're listening on audio only, you may hear some babies crying, some announcements, stuff like that. Omari, real quick, vibe check. Good, I feel like. Is that an understatement?
Maybe a little bit of an understatement. Yeah, I would say the vibes are great. I think obviously the ending of game 1 was deflating, but on Sunday they came back and they talked about being confident, right? Like they played 40 good minutes, just close it out. They didn't seem to take it to heart, and then obviously they bounced back. And like, I don't want to call it like a dark cloud, but I don't know how else to describe a 17-year drought without the playoff win. So they were honestly pretty businesslike after the game, but like it's the first playoff win in 17 years. Like it's a big accomplishment, and the vibes are great. I think they've continued to sustain, essentially what they started back in December.
So Sean, maybe you can speak to that with the amount of time since this team won a playoff game, the vibes around that, the excitement around that. You've been around this team, you're covering stuff for a long time. What was it like watching them finally get that monkey off their back on Monday night in the Garden?
I guess thanks for having me, by the way. I wasn't thinking about that. I don't think the team was thinking about that. I don't think the coaches were thinking about that. I'm not even sure Tom Gores was thinking about that much. I mean, maybe he was a little bit. This team had nothing to do with that. I mean, they haven't even been in the playoffs in 6 years, right? So nobody on that team is on this team. And I think it's a much bigger deal for us, the media, and then clearly the fans. But for the people in the team, in the locker room, the coaches, and the film rooms, all that, I think it was just about evening this series and making a statement that they're here in the first round. And I think it's more to do about bringing Detroit basketball back and saying, hey, this is what we're about on the national stage. A lot of, basketball people know they hadn't won a game in 17 years, but basketball fans, casual basketball fans out there who might be sort of enjoying this young team and the way they play, they're not thinking about that either.
Yeah, in the moment, I will say just over the years, the guys get asked about it a lot, and I feel like they've been educated about sort of, what the team's been through, like not only that, but like I know early on they talked about watching the Bad Boys documentary and everything. So, like I can see a mix of both. Like I think in the moment they're thinking we just have a game to win. Like you won 44 games this year, so you don't have. It's not like you've never won a basketball game before, but at the same time, like I feel like with just how things have been, like them coming in, been asked about it too, and he just got here, so I can see it for him too. But Cade, Isaiah, the guys who have been there for a while, I do think they have some understanding of like, this team hadn't done that since Cade's like 23, so like 6-7 years old. Mix of both, but absolutely yesterday they were in the locker room thinking we have a game to win and we won it, and now we have 3 more.
Sorry, guys. I know it sounds like we're trying to figure out the audio level on the mics. I'll keep adjusting it. Let us know in the comments. I got a new computer. My other one went down before game 1 on Saturday. I was very panicked about that situation. So leveling stuff out here. Wes will keep working with me on that. Speaking of game 1, Sean, you were at both game 1 and game 2. Detroit played really well, maybe the better team for the 75-80% of that game. Obviously the fourth quarter run happened for the Knicks. They come back in game 2 and kind of wire to wire looked really good. New York ties it up in the fourth quarter, and then Schroeder has the big response. What have you seen so far in these 2 games?
Let me just make one more comment about this 17-year run. I mean, Amari's right. They're aware of it. They're educated about it. And I think they were happy to give the city, it's almost like a gift, right?
Right.
They were happy to give this basketball fan base that gift. I just don't think they're a new thing. They're their own thing. And I think it's more about, it's not so much to me about the 17 years as it is, and I saw this nationally last night and then again today. Now, take social media with a grain of salt, but there's this idea that, okay, Detroit's starting to show real promise. Why is it people outside this area are trying to figure out, okay, why is it so Detroit specific again? Why do the Pistons get good and you recognize that style of play as Detroit? To me, that's much more interesting than the 17 years. And that's what I saw all last night, even to a degree the other day when they controlled the game for the first 3 quarters on Saturday. To me, that's worth something. That's why there's so much pride here. It's very, very specific to us and the folks that live here.
Go ahead, Omari.
Cool. We're having some bike issues behind the scenes, so I was just making sure we're all set. But no, I mean, these guys are so young that you can only have so much of a perspective for that. I mean, I think about, the Pistons when I was around the age of how long that streak was, and that was like Grant Hill era, like my memories of that are a bit more fuzzy, but I think it goes hand in hand. And again, it's just like you talk about that Detroit style of play and how that's really recognizable, but I think they're also aware of that, like, the legacy of the team and what it means to embody being the Detroit Pistons. So you can't really embody that, and I think the knock against other teams that are somewhat good at that until you actually have playoff success, like, it doesn't really mean anything, right? And now this team, I think they officially stamped it by winning a playoff game. Like, we are legitimate, we've earned these comparisons, and we're here to stay. And I feel like that's the difference between this team and what people didn't feel with Blake Griffin or maybe some of the other past teams is just that you expected that to fizzle out. And this feels a lot more real, I think, than that felt then because of what they had to do to get here.
Sean, let's go ahead. Unless you have some other thoughts on this, where are you at with the actual games? What have you seen? You mentioned that Detroit style of basketball. Is that really what stood out? Detroit's ability to kind of assert their will on the Knicks, be the more physical team, the tougher team, those type of things. What's been like maybe your biggest takeaway thus far in these 2 games?
Just the effort level, and everybody's playing hard in the playoffs, but the intensity level, again, everybody's intense. It's just the way the Pistons swarm. You've watched Tobias Harris, Bryce, and several other stops. The way he was getting up into Karl Anthony Towns, though even Malik Beasley's not necessarily a great defender, but you can see the try, right? I mean, look, JB Bickerstaff probably deserves the most credit for setting this and resetting this culture, but we've talked about Troy Weaver when I've done a podcast before. He drafted guys that come by this naturally. Trajan Langdon added a couple of guys, and for whatever reason, the alchemy of it is just to me, it's just the way they flew around defensively in both games. They got away from them in the fourth quarter, obviously Saturday night, but I guess what most impressed me, Bryce, is that they gave up 120, whatever it was, 123. I'm trying to remember on Saturday night. The way they came back and sort of said, we had stretches where this worked, and we're just going to triple down on this. They were suffocating last night. The Knicks had nowhere to go. The couple of threes that Brunson hit early, they were off second chance points, right? Where the ball's swinging back out. I mean, he hit 1 3, I think, within the flow of the offense, but it just seemed like there were maybe loose ball situations, breakdown situations that way where there's kind of chaos. That was their best offense. It was really sort of stunning to watch. I don't know what you guys thought, but that was probably my main takeaway is just how suffocating they were.
Yeah. JB talked about on Sunday, like how do you replace, essentially what beef stew gives you just from sort of that physicality and energy standpoint, and it seems like they all kind of stepped in and felt that. And Tobias, like I think he's been really good defensively through the two games, and his defense on Cat, like just his physicality, just his aggressiveness on that end, I think really has been sort of the linchpin for the Pistons defense, where like Cat was a complete non-factor in like the second half last night, and I think some of that was just due to like New York's offense just having some, well, I don't want to say issues, but I mean Brunson was pretty ball dominant down the stretch, but I thought Duran was a little bit better. I thought the guards tried to max that physicality. Like Paul Reed, like he always comes in and he gives us all. So that was a huge test for them last night to be able to have that type of performance. I know they held the Knicks below 40% shooting in the second half. They've done that multiple times this season. To do that without beef stew, I think really does put a statement on JB's and just the identity change.
Yeah, and I would just, if I may, I would just add to that, and I'm sure you picked up on this too, Bryce. They were giving up slips and backdoors in the first half, and Bickerstaff I thought was really astute last night. He called a couple of very quick timeouts, and when I say quick, I mean the minute New York started to sniff a run, he was doing Rick Carlisle, right? I always think of Rick Carlisle as calling a timeout. The game will be tied. The other team scores a bucket in the second quarter, and Carlisle's sprinting out to call a timeout. I don't. He's always been aggressive that way. But I thought Bickerstaff was really good with his use of timeouts last night. And one he called, it was after, I want to say, a slip, and that stopped after that timeout. So whatever they talked about, the adjustments they made, and I'm sure that was part of their film on Sunday and the pregame and the shoot around, and they're talking about the locker room. But you get in the moment sometimes, and you get lost a little bit. He calls the timeout. I don't know if they gave another, maybe the dunk to tie it, but that wasn't really a slip.
No, that was Duran.
Double up high. Yeah.
Duran came with an early double, and the weak side defenders didn't respond to it being as early as what it was. Beasley stayed hugged up to Bridges, and then Cade, and it would have been Tobias were a little bit higher. Like they just didn't get the right rotation on it. It wasn't, I know exactly what you're talking about because I always make notes of it because the off-ball defense has been a concern for me going into the playoffs. And you're right. It definitely didn't show up a whole lot, if at all, in the second half of game 2.
No, it didn't. And that's, to me, I mean, you got a lot of young guys in that huddle. The fact that they can make that adjustment and not really struggle with that, not give that up much the rest of the way. Obviously we haven't even talked about Cade Cunningham, but other than Cunningham and obviously Schroeder, it's really, really impressive that they could learn that quickly. Omari and I both heard JB talk about it, right, Omari? They got it. They were schooled Saturday night. How quickly were they going to learn? Well, they learned pretty darn quickly.
Yeah, they did. I've just really been impressed by the resiliency this team has had. It seems like every so often this season they've had a loss or a moment that, maybe for past teams could have been unraveling, and it just hasn't been for them. It seems like they've been able to problem solve in real time and withstand whatever has been thrown at them. And they were like 6 of 27 from 3 or something last night. Like you only had like 2.5 guys, 3 guys that were able to get a bucket between Schroeder, Tobias, and Cade. Obviously, that's a defensive statement game. And I mentioned this on a pod earlier, and just in general, I feel like why the Knicks have struggled against this Pistons team is because they embody their style of play, or what a Tim style of play would be, better than they do, which obviously is also a JB style of play, but. They want to be inside the paint. They want to be, inside the perimeter, and they want to just beat you up in there. And as long as they can do that for 48 minutes, Trevor's going to have a shot.
And can we? I'm curious what you guys think, but can we credit Bickerstaff a little bit for, one of the reps he had coming out of Cleveland was the playoff ball and making adjustments and real time adjustments. Starting Harris on Karl Anthony Towns. Now you can maybe say his hand was forced a little bit because he knew Isaiah Stewart's knee was compromised heading into the first game. And obviously, game 2, they weren't going to have him at all. But that's a creative solution, I think. Putting Harris on Karl Anthony Towns, right? Kind of understanding that Harris is big enough and strong enough. He's obviously not Cat size, but that may work. And then not hiding, but putting Duren on Hart, because Duren's got pretty good quick feet out there, and Hart's not Steph Curry. You know what I mean? I feel like Bickerstaff and his staff deserve some credit for being creative there.
Well, I think what's interesting too, Sean, is that's not what they did all regular season. We saw Duren on Cat throughout the regular season. This is one of those situations I would love to know if JB and his staff were holding that in their back pocket. Was it an evaluation during the regular season, wanting to see how Cat could handle it? And it's like, okay, he never handled stretch bigs well in the regular season. Now this is truly winning time in the playoffs. We're going to go to this other option of Tobias on him. I also think it plays to Jalen's strengths in terms of this off-ball rim protector, right? I think if we've seen him take real growth in his rim protection this year, it's been as an off-ball guy. We're 16 minutes into the pod. I don't feel like we've talked a lot of Cade Cunningham, Sean. We probably need to do that and give him some real flowers here.
We do, but let me just make one last point about the strategy in this, and the smaller picture, the immediate thinking, and then the long-term thinking. I was talking to Luke Walton last week after one of the practices, the associate head coach, assistant head coach for JB, and he was talking about Duren and Stewart, and he said there were plenty of times this season where they knew Stewart was the better matchup in the moment, right? Especially earlier in the season, because they aren't sure what the season's about. They don't know back in December that they're looking at a 6 seed. So they're and it shifted as the season went on, but they're trying to balance. Okay, yes, Stewart's probably should be on the floor right now, but we got to develop Duren. So they're constantly weighing game by game, even within the game, how much is development, right? Minutes for Duren, and how much is, okay, we just need the matchup because we got to win this game. They've been juggling that all year, and it's just interesting how this is playing out.
Yeah, it is. And I also just wondered, and this kind of goes into their Cat usage too, which I'm sure we'll get into maybe after Cade, but just the fear of them making the adjustment where it's like, Cat, you need to shoot more than 2 3-pointers. Like, we want you to hit double digits if you can. And like, we know how that's going for the Pistons this season. I also wonder how much of it was just them kind of proactively trying to neutralize that before you get Cat going early in the series. And now, essentially you're playing to your weaknesses instead of your strengths.
Guys, I think we're getting the volume close here. If you're listening on audio after the fact and Robin wasn't able to fix it, we apologize again. I got a new computer. I think mine came in hot. Maybe Omari's mic got a little bit off. So hopefully the listening viewership is getting a little better, and we apologize for that at the top. Hopefully it wasn't too bad. Hopefully I didn't blow out your ears with my voice at the beginning. We'll have it fixed before next recording. Sean, I do want to ask you, we have Andrew Claudio, a Knicks guy, coming on after you have to leave us, and I want to get his perspective, but I want to get yours. Are you surprised Cat hasn't shot more threes? I watched these 2 games, and I'm like, okay, he's made some impressive drives and finishes and stuff, but if there's one thing this defense has really struggled with, it's stretch bigs all year. I realize Tobias, counteracts that a little bit.
A little?
Well, I know, but I don't even think they're trying. Or would you just give all credit to Tobias and JB in that matchup?
I think that's where the credit goes.
Okay.
He did try last night. He did let one go last night. It wasn't even close. He was like, "Oh my God, I'm open." Right? Harris has been on him like flypaper, which is kind of giving up. You're giving up leverage on the drive, and he's obviously, to me, the biggest challenge for Harris is when. This is what I don't understand even more, is posting him up.
Yeah.
Right? Because he's a pretty good passer, too. That's where Cat has the biggest advantage over Harris. He's got some leverage on the drive. Stewart we saw that a week and a half ago. Stewart was masterful because he has the strength to really shut Cat down on the drives. But Harris has been up in his grill, and they're willing to give up those drives. Don't you think?
I'm with you. I think the matchup in general is definitely going to take away some. I guess what I'm surprised is there hasn't been some sort of emphasis. Like, we haven't seen it in transition. We haven't, I don't even know that they really, I can't remember a very vivid pick and pop possession, right? Where Cat just popped and that was the action. You know what I mean? And maybe Tobias has been so good, and maybe this is, I've given him a lot of credit in my notes, Sean, on both ends of the floor. Maybe I need to give him even more, because here's the other thing. Cat's made like 5 ridiculous shots on top of like the lack of overall production that I don't know that he's going to make all series.
No, you're talking about the fall away kind of leaders off the glass when Harris is draped up. Well, think about this too. So if Brunson's calling him up, who are the 2 defenders up there? It's Asar Thompson, and Tobias Harris. I mean, they're blowing that whole action up, and I know Thompson is largely trying to fight through, right? And he's done an incredible job actually of fighting through. He's got to stay on a full mode with foul trouble. That's a different issue. But yeah, no, I just think they've done an intentional and a terrific job of blowing up the pick and pop.
Omari, I'm a little offended. Ty Cobb's bat is giving you credit for your braids. No mention of me and Sean. Like we don't even exist here on the video.
I love the braid. I love the braid love. I appreciate that. That means a lot.
I'm not surprised, Sean.
Bryce,
we're not
I've been trying to get you to to grow your hair out for a long time, man.
This is the longest you're gonna get it. I've been really busy the last couple Sundays.
2025, man. There is stuff out there, man. Come on.
I don't even have hair, so I can't really say anything. I did tell Omari in New York though that when I saw a promo photo, maybe with Omari's hair blown out, and John Neo, a columnist of the Detroit News, was there. We're both like, you got to show up to a game with that. That is awesome. That dude is awesome. You got to make a statement and walk in like Kay did in that salmon-colored three-quarter alpaca.
That was nice.
Yeah,
that was nice.
All right, guys.
Yeah, I would love to. It just takes too much to blow my hair out. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it at some point. We'll see.
All right, we got to get to this topic. We'll get your thoughts first, Sean, and then O2. Steven Suggs, can you guys talk about the bench doghounds, Dennis the Menace and Paul Reed, and Big Dog Pistons? The Knicks have no bench. That needs to be discussed. Sean, your thoughts on the non-starter contributions of Dennis Schroeder, Malik Beasley. I know he had an off night in game 2. Paul Reed minutes with Isaiah Stewart out. And then really the Knicks' lack of bench other than the campaign takeover in the fourth quarter in game 1.
Well, they had the McBride, the Miles McBride bank in 3 at the end of the shot clock. I'll let Mr. Claudio talk. It's Claudio, right?
Yeah.
Talk about the lack of look, they haven't had a bench all year. I don't think it's surprising. I mean, I thought campaign's performance Saturday night probably wasn't sustainable. But this is the playoffs too. You get a role guy making plays at home, and it swings the game, and sometimes can swing a series. We'll see moving forward, and we'll see what they do. What the role guys, I hate to call them role guys for the Pistons, they're really sort of the main guys with some of the injuries. What they do back in Little Caesars, but no, Omar and I were. When Paul Reed once he actually led the break and tried to throw like a bounce pass with his right hand to the left. That was a little rough. That was a little rough. And then another time he tried to skip it ahead, and you're kind of, if you're a fan or if you're the coach, like but at the same time he was so energetic and such a spark for them, right? And he was everywhere. I think in both those cases, his rotations helped create the loose ball, the turnover, whatever it was. I don't remember the exact kind of turnovers, but oh man, you just got to live with that. He made a difference. He gave them a huge spark. As far as Schroeder, man, he's been doing this on the international stage for a while, right? I remember even in Atlanta, he made some shots. He's a sneaky clutch. I shouldn't say sneaky. That sounds like a pejorative, but he's a good clutch player. How about that? He just is, and he hadn't made a lot of shots lately, so. For him to do that, that was big time. I mean, he helped win them the game.
K. Barb says we got Germany FIBA Dennis Schroeder last night, 0-2.
Yeah,
no question.
Yeah, I think I posed this question to you, Sean. I said Dennis Schroeder is the best Pistons mid-season acquisition since Sheed. And I think you countered Tobias, which was a great counter. But he's in that conversation of most impactful mid-season signings, like even just before last night, they went 4-2, without Cade towards the end of the year, and Schroeder was a big part of that, just being able to keep things level. He's pesky on defense. Like you can put him out there, and there's not a whole lot of downsides to playing him.
No, that's the thing. His two-way play, and He's calm. He doesn't take a lot of bad shots. I just obviously he's not Rasheed Wallace, right? In terms of talent, overall talent level.
She.
Yeah, no.
Nobody's on
sure.
shit. Yeah, that's
no.
That's
I just want to make that clear for your listeners. I know you're not saying that. I assume your listeners know you're not saying that. But yeah, no. But getting back, to Schroeder, and Paul Reed. On a night when Hardaway goes 0 for 8 and 0 for 6 from 3. Beasley hit, I think, 1 3.
I think that's right.
And maybe one other 2. So he was 2 for whatever. The fact that you're gonna win with that, well, yeah. Do you expect Dennis Schroeder to come and score 20 and hit basically the game-winning shot?
Yeah.
And guard Brunson. Think how much time he spent on Brunson with the SAR foul trouble. Schroeder has spent a lot of time on Brunson.
And did a good job not fouling for the most part, too.
He can get bullied a little bit because Brunson's so much more physical. But I do have to mention this. Andrew says, was waiting for the Paul Reed mid-range set shot. Surprised it didn't happen. I actually said that on Game Theory last night. Sam Vicini was giving Paul Reed his flowers for his minutes. I don't believe in single game plus minus. Do you guys know what Paul Reed was last night in his 11 minutes?
20?
It's close. Closer to 20 than what you would think. He was plus 13 in his 11 minutes. But I'm a little disappointed. Paul Reed, if you listen to the podcast, listen, the mid-range jumper is like every single game, man. Like you got to bring it out. He brings energy. Somebody brought up K-Bar blowing up pick and rolls and stuff like that. All right, before we let you go, Sean, Colin Woods said, more K talk. Colin, we are sorry. Little distracted. We got to get the audio figured out. Again, apologies. Sounds like we got that going. We had to talk some other things. Cade Cunningham, Sean, go.
Yeah, it's sort of ridiculous we've waited this long. What do you mean more Cade talk? We haven't talked about him at all. I feel a little bit guilty here because we start geeking out with the coaching stuff. Just the fact that it's 1-1. Look, he like I mentioned earlier, he strolled in there game 1, kind of looking as a reporter mentioned, right? Omari after the game 1 loss, looking clean with a clean look, and he was ready for the moment. He didn't play terribly Saturday night. I didn't think it took him a minute to figure out the hedging and the doubles and the blitzing and all of that. He wasn't as aggressive offensively. He had 12 assists, but you could tell he and the staff talked about what the plan was going to be. He was going to be aggressive and then go from there and let New York react to that aggressiveness. And they kind of did. And in some ways they just kind of didn't have an answer. I was talking about this with somebody the other day. I don't know of any player quite like him right now in the NBA. Nobody moves quite like him, not at that size, with the change, obviously the change of pace. But to me, it's just we talk about Asar Thompson kind of floating around. Cunningham does too a little bit, but he's got the ball in his hands. He's not as springy and explosive. He doesn't teleport like Thompson does, but just the patience. He's just a really, really pretty player to watch. Even sometimes watch him get an outlet and the way he kind of is bounding down with the ball, and it's just nobody else is quite coming down the floor at that speed. The wraparound when Bridges met him at the top of the 3-point line in transition, the wraparound and then the ball from left back to right to dunk and then point at Carmelo Anthony sitting on the baseline. Just how smooth all that is and just how patient he is. He can score obviously at all 3 levels. This is headed. That's what I saw the other night.
Yeah, the thing and there's so many different ways that he could get you too, right? Like I don't even think he's had to post up too much this series. He's attacked for mid range a lot, and then last night he was able to get to the rim. What I liked is that in game 1, of course, like the Pistons got a lot of open threes, and a lot of that was just because of how hard they blitzed Cade. And then last night was kind of the opposite, where it was the perfect storm. But if he attacks immediately, and they played him 1-on-1 a little bit more, and we've seen how he handled Hart and Bridges all season, but he got OG a few times too. And I think that was maybe a little bit more of the unknown, just given that we hadn't seen OG defend Cade as much during the regular season. But what I love about Cade is just his pace. He plays at a very unique pace that's somewhere between like a run and a jog. Like I just think about that play he had in transition where he, goes behind the back and dunks past Bridges, and he just does it all in one fluid motion and didn't break pace at all. Like compared to Brunson, who's very herky-jerky, Cade doesn't have as much of that. He's very decisive, and he kind of decides what he wants to do. And, sometimes it's one dribble move and you're at the rim. Sometimes he's just going right through you. And there's a lot of that last night, too. So that's really it. Like, there's a lot in his game offensively as far as his ability to score that he has not shown. And, he doesn't do more than necessary, but, he's got a deep bag that he can reach into. And I'm curious to see how that evolves over the course of the series and what else they try to do to slow him down.
Yeah.
Go ahead, real Sean. Quick. I'll keep this quick. How many times you say grown man to me last night sitting next to me, Omari?
Between him and Duran, yeah.
But just finishing.
A lot of weight room plays.
Finishing through contact and finishing with either hand. He was really something.
GMAC's waiting here. I'm going to get his eyes to rise up on this. Mikal Bridges cannot guard Cade Cunningham. He can't. GMAC is shaking his head no. He is a Knicks content creator that is agreeing, and we'll get his thoughts in a second. Here's the thing, Sean, to that point, he's bodied OG a couple times, and OG is a big-time defender in this league. I've been very impressed with OG in this series, especially I thought game one, he was incredible. But Cade's ability to create advantages with his wiggle and his handle and then keep those advantages. And then here's the stat I want to throw out real quick. His scoring stuff is actually very similar between the two games. The exact same number of field goal attempts. They were even between threes and two-pointers in those games. It was the same. Second game, though, he got to the free throw line more. He was obviously more efficient. But what I love is game one, it was the assists. Game two, he had 12 rebounds, and 11 of them were defensive rebounds. The Detroit Pistons out-rebounded the New York Knicks by a substantial margin, and Tobias and Cade both had double-digit defensive rebounds in that game on Monday night. I've always said Cade was going to be an all-around player, and I feel like that's what we're seeing so far all year, but we're seeing it play out in this year. One game, it's the assist. The next game, it's the scoring. It's the rebounding, Sean. Even defensively, he's been fine. He's not incredible, but he's fine.
I would say sometimes more than fine. That's what I was just going to say. I think he's had stretches where in these two games where he's been hounding. You know what I mean? Getting up in guys in a way. And Omar and I were talking about this again at the end of the game. He was absolutely gassed. They all were. That's why Schroeder needed to take the shot in some way. I think the possession before, he went down on the corner and threw it back up to Schroeder and just kind of hung out there. He had nothing left, right? He had nothing left.
He played 42 minutes, I think is what – yeah, he played 42. So, all right, we got to get to a break. We got to get you on a flight. So, safe flight back to Detroit. Excited. Oh, what?
I'm in Detroit. I'm at the Detroit airport. Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were in LaGuardia.
No.
Oh, you're – shout out you just hanging out in the airport so you can make this time work. And as Wes said, here's what's funny. Your audio sounded the best from the start, and you're sitting in the Detroit Metro Airport, and me and Omari are in our room. So thank you, Sean. Any quick last thoughts? I bet we have you on again here, hopefully next week if you can after games 3 and 4. But any quick thoughts before we let you go and get GMAC on here?
I think Thursday night's the most anticipated professional basketball game around here in 15, 16 years. It's obviously not close, so it should be great. We'll see what happens.
All right. Thank you so much, Sean. We will have you back soon. Omari, we're going to go to break. When we come back, we'll introduce our guest, GMAC, Andrew Claudio.
All right, we are back with segment 2 here, and we are joined by one of our favorite Knicks content creators. Actually, my second time seeing you today. So hello again.
Long time no see, Omari. How you doing?
Our guy Andrew Claudio, man, how's it going?
Well, it's good. Sean was just here, and him saying that he's not at LaGuardia. I'm happy for you that you're just not stuck at LaGuardia Airport. As someone who lives 15 minutes from LaGuardia, has been stuck in both LaGuardia traffic and at the airport many a time. Happy that he was able to get out safely and back to Detroit, which I'm hoping the Knicks get to Detroit a little differently than they left New York as well. So.
Aruna says DTW had surprisingly good acoustics. That is true. We listen. We almost canceled on Sean. Omari was like, "Hey, he's at the airport. Like, do we bring him on?" I was like, "I've listened to all sorts of podcasts where the guy was at the airport. We can do this." And again, it's me and Omari screwing up the mic settings. So we'll get it figured out. As you know, Andrew, I've had some computer issues recently. I think some of that. So we may have to reconfigure game theory as well before the next recording, which hopefully is not tonight because I stayed up way too late last night after that. So
I couldn't believe it, man. As someone who then edited said thing, and I'm an owl, so I was staying up late ready for it. But when I saw the text come in at close to 3 a.m. my time, like, hey, we're done. I was like, oh, Bryce, you have to get up early your time, and it's late your time.
4 hours. Luckily, I woke up because I left my phone in Royce's room, and I was able to hear it in the room that I actually sleep in. So, all right, let's talk basketball. That's what people are here for. They don't want to hear about that. I want to get your Pistons perspective first, GMAC. We're bringing you on for the whole thing and the Knicks side of things and all of that as well. I want to get, for me, I would very fascinated to get your thoughts on Cade, whether it's Cade, Schroeder, JD, JB, this team as a whole. What are your thoughts? What is different than what you thought you were gonna see through these first two games?
Well, so those are two different things.
Okay.
What my overall Pistons thoughts and what's different from what I've seen through the first two games. My overall thoughts are that they're getting help to Cade from a second scorer way more than I expected. And I understand what the numbers were in game 2, especially what they were from 3, how many looks they missed down the stretch. Shout out to there's this Substack that I've been reading lately, the Motor City Hoops Substack, that did a really great breakdown of the final 6 minutes and how many good looks that the Pistons got. Everybody should subscribe. It's free, by the way.
Here's the funny thing is I actually
good
know
advice, right?
I
Yeah.
actually know you watched it because that was the theme of the video, and I know Omari reads the Substack because I can see the 5 stars next to his name. So you guys don't just BS it, like you guys are actually about it, and I appreciate it very much.
You're welcome. And
There's no reason to not read it. Like, why would you not read it?
it's free. I keep saying this.
like-
It's free. Sign up if you're a Knicks guy, if you're a Pistons person, if you're an NBA person. You will enjoy Bryce's thoughts and all the breakdowns that they do over at the Motor City Hoops Substack. And what I took away from it, and I had a feeling that it's what I was seeing down the stretch of game 2 as well, is that the Knicks aren't like the Pistons only scored 100 points, but it wasn't at the cause of the Knicks. And outside of an 8-minute stretch where the Knicks showed up at the fourth quarter of game 1, the Pistons have been the better team in this series. They've largely imposed their will with their physicality on the boards, on the defensive end. Look, I'm sure we'll talk about Jalen Brunson and some foul baiting that went on in the second half of yesterday, but like when the game is allowed to be called a little more physical, it's just the Knicks have not matched that physicality and found other ways to score. And it's why I predicted Knicks in 7, or at least that this would be a 7-game series, while a lot of people were pointing to the talent discrepancy. And when you add in that they got a good first half from Tobias Harris and what Dennis Schroeder gave him last night and Malik Beasley gave him last night, it says that the Pistons this is a much closer series than a lot of people predicted beforehand. And it's everything that we talked about before the series, Bryce, that I'm now as a content creator, but as a fan, I'm 1%, maybe 10% more worried than I was at the end of game 1.
What's maybe surprised you, if at all, about how the Knicks have approached this series? Especially when you look at the regular season.
Here we go. No, we open the bag right away. Let's do it.
I'm like, come on, we got some time. Let's do
how
it.
the Knicks have approached this series is a fascinating question, because I'm actually going to turn this into a question, and I'm going to ask it to Bryce. So you came on when they played the Pistons right before the season ended, that game 80, whatever it was, and we were going over defensive matchups, right? And you were going through who's going to guard up, and I was attentive because I wanted to hear how you thought they would guard Cat. And I was like, you think they'll guard Cat with a center, because he hasn't been guarded with a center since January. And I was hoping, I was praying that Tibbs would see what I've seen. And this isn't like an indictment of Tibbs. I'm not a fire the coach person. I'm simply just going by what I've seen. And when you were like, I think they'll guard him traditionally with a center, I was like, oh, then advantage Knicks. If they're going to guard him with Deron and even Isaiah Stewart or even Paul Reed, like putting a center on Cat is advantage, team with one of the better offensive centers that the sport has ever seen. And then we show up in game 1 and Tobias Harris is guarding him and Josh Hart's being guarded by a center. And all of the frustrations that I've had and a lot of Knicks fans have had for the last several months have just been on full display for these first 2 games. And it's less, Omari, about what surprised me in the Knicks approach. It's been more that it's not as surprising because I've seen it. Like, I'm surprised they didn't change anything, that they didn't get to the playoffs and adjust anything. They're still just fine with a center camping out on Josh Hart and then playing in help. And then they have an extra person to load up on Brunson, which means Cat turns into a floor spacer. He took 0 shots in the fourth quarter. He took 3 shots in the second half. They've just gone away from any Cat Jalen Brunson pick and roll. And it's what we've seen for the majority of 2025. So the thing that's surprising is how unsurprising it is that they're exactly who they've been since January 1st.
And that's kind of what I was curious. If we talk about, like Bryce, we've talked about how this team's Achilles heel, or one of the Achilles heels on offense is, floor spacing 5s. Yet in 4 games against the Knicks this season, I can't remember Cat really popping off from 3 the way that Brook Lopez and Miles Turner have. And I thought coming into this series, and we kind of talked about it with Sean earlier, but you put Tobias just to kind of proactively, discourage Cat from just, chucking up 3s, and you're abusing their centers in space. But they haven't yet. Like, they haven't done that. And to me, if you really want to neutralize Detroit's physicality and make them scramble and kind of dictate the battle on your terms, you're spamming pick and pops with Cat, and you're like, we're going to get you 10 3-point attempts in the first half just to set the tone like that. This needs to be you.
Omari, how about 10 attempts in the first half? How about 10 field goal attempts? Why does Tobias Harris being on him? No disrespect to Tobias Harris, but I think Karl Anthony Towns can score on you. I don't know if that's a hot take, that the all-star starter, guy that's going to make All-NBA according to a lot of people this year, should be able to score if Tobias Harris is on him. And the Knicks are just like, yeah, but I'd rather spam Jalen Hart. That's a Freudian slip. Jalen Brunson, Josh Hart pick and rolls. And like, we didn't talk about this tomorrow, but Bryce and I did. Like, this has been their crunch time offense, and I guess clutch time, because we created that word 2 years ago. Like, this has been what they do all 2025. It's why Jalen Brunson is a candidate for clutch player of the year, because it's been effective. What's worried a lot of us is like, all right, like the save us Jalen Brunson offense is working, but what happens if it doesn't and you have no other counters other than, well, keep trying to save us, Jalen? And like, it's the 3 options when you go to Josh Hart, Jalen Brunson pick and rolls in crunch time are like usually a center then gets matched onto Jalen, which is advantage Knicks, especially if the center is dropping, or they double and he gets it to Josh Hart in the short roll. And I actually like Josh Hart 4-on-3, especially with 3 other floor spacers. Or you get Josh Hart in the dunker. The shot that tied the game 94-94 was them finding Josh Hart backdoor in the dunker spot because Duren came up too much and a little too early on the help. Those are effective things that you can do in crunch time. That's a lot of Josh Hart that I just mentioned in the span of like 3 plays or 3 options.
And not offensive rebound, dive on the floor, transition type plays, half court action Josh Hart.
It's like they have another all-star on the team. That's not Josh Hart. Last year I understood it a little bit more because you didn't have like Julius Randle was out. And honestly, like even when they had Julius, they would run the offense through Julius sometimes. Like he could create and they would do it that way. And it's just this whole season, Cat's been used as a floor spacer. And you go through these stretches where it's not even that he's not getting shots up. It's not a lack of aggressiveness on his end. He's not touching the ball. He's just used as like, go stand over there, bring your guy over there. And we're going to have Jalen and the Roommates podcast kind of cook down the stretch. And the worst version of it we saw last night.
All right, I want to transition a little bit back to the Pistons side.
Yes, please.
We got yelled at earlier because we weren't talking about Cade enough, and rightfully so, because Cade Cunningham has been incredible. What have been your thoughts? Because like you said, we previewed this series over on Knicks Film School. You guys should be checking that out. They're talking about this series just like all the Pistons content creators are. We can all get along no matter where we stand on foul baiting and all of that and the officials. I told you, what did I tell you? That as soon as the ball tipped game 1, what should happen? What should the New York Knicks do?
OG Anunoby should be on Cade Cunningham.
And they should double him if he's not on him. I feel like we've seen OG on him a lot. It's been effective at times. We've seen 2 on Cade a lot. But GMAC, me and Omari have watched every second of Cade Cunningham's career. that dude's looking real comfortable all of a sudden for the last 6 quarters. I think Tibbs better have a new plan come game 3, or he's going to continue to look real comfortable. What do you think about that?
So it's interesting you said the last 6 quarters, because I don't fully agree about the fourth quarter of game one.
Sure. I just meant, like, I thought in the first half of game 1, it was like, it's his first playoff game, right?
Yeah.
And then, so sure, 5 out of 6, whatever. But he's looking very comfortable compared to what we saw in the first half of game 1.
Here's what I'll say. He's been the best player in the series so far. And that's look, you want to talk about the preview that we did before the series, Bryce? Like, we went a little viral on TikTok because I seemed to hint that he's the second or third best player in the series, and that if the Pistons were to be matched up against the Pacers, that it's a wash between him and Tyrese Halliburton. I apologize for the disrespect. In the words of Shaquille O'Neal, I guess I was unfamiliar with your game, Cade Cunningham. I give him a ton of credit for that game 2 performance. I also want to give JB Bickerstaff a ton of credit, because they're running a lot of stuff to get OG Anunoby off of him. Whether it's back screens, whether it's the DHO at Schroeder, or whatever guard is on the court, to then get it back to Cade in a bit of a pistol set. Like, they're doing a lot of things to get him downhill that at least gets Anunoby moving, so that it's not just one-on-one or in a pick and roll. Because, like you said, they mixed up the coverages really well in game 1. Like, okay, here we're blitzing, here we're doubling, here we're hedging and recovering, here you're just on an island, here we're switching. And it's interesting. The switching is actually a good part of this to talk about, because one of the things the Knicks countered with in game 2, and it's the story of the Knicks season, is that, all right, we'll switch. Let Mikal Bridges guard you. And guess who can't guard Cade Cunningham, as you mentioned earlier, Bryce? It's Mikal Bridges. And you know what the formula before the season was supposed to be? Well, okay, fine. Switch off of Anunoby. We've got Mikal Bridges.
The formula was, we can account for our bad point of attack, or like on-ball guard defender, and our big man not being a premier defender, because we're going to defend so well on the wing.
Yep.
I will take my victory lap here with the Substack. I wrote that like three games ago during the regular season that you always like to bring up, where it said, they traded 5 first rounds for picks for this. He can't guard Cade Cunningham. It's continued. Listen, here's the thing, guys. If Cade Cunningham gets on it cleared outside against Mikal Bridges, he is going baseline, and he is going to score, because Mikal Bridges cannot keep him off the baseline. I'm sorry, GMAC. I know you agree. I'm sure it's not easy to hear.
Bro, he slices through Bridges like knife through butter. It is like, he might as well not even be there. It's insane.
It's less so that it's hard to hear. It's just like that. So December 7th, if people want to go read it, was the game at Madison Square Garden where Cade torched the Knicks, and Bryce did that recap, those notes on the Motor City Hoops Substack that everybody should be subscribed to. And like, we were having those thoughts around Thanksgiving. Like, we traded 5 picks for this, and then like December, he was outstanding. The Knicks played a lot of bad teams. Christmas Day
was incredible.
41 points. He fights off an alien invasion from Victor Wembanyama, and the Knicks win on Christmas. And then it's been like, the bail I usually I send Mikal Bridges' way is that he's largely been matched up as a pick and roll partner on defense with Cat, and Cat's just backpedaling and drop coverage into oblivion. So he's just got like no extra time to get around a screen. And it's why I've been curious through a lot of the second half of the season, really since the All-Star break, when he's matched up with Mitchell Robinson, how much better he's looked, or when the Knicks bring Cat up a little more. If I understand why during the regular season, Tibbs was like, you cannot stay out of foul trouble, and you're one of our most important players on offense, which is funny because the reason he's most important to Tibbs is because he's just a floor spacer for Jalen Brunson, but I digress. The fact that he wants Cat to stay on the floor means I'm going to have the most conservative coverage for you possible and have you play drop and get all these rebounds, but other teams just going to cook in the mid-range. And it's why I've had a little bit of grace for Mikal in the second half of the season, recognizing those issues that being paired with a center that's just not the greatest rim protector can cause. It's the playoffs, man. Like at a certain point, the aggressiveness and just being guarded. If you're guarding Cade Cunningham, you were brought here to at least be somewhat of a resistance. When they're targeting you, and that seemed to be what part of the plan was last night, that let's just get Anunoby off him, and if the Knicks switch it, advantage us no matter who it is, whether it's Bridges, whether it's Hart, and then obviously Cat or Jalen Brunson. And it's why I'd like to bring this all the way back around to Cade. I thought he looked phenomenal in game 2. You're right, Bryce. He looks very comfortable. I don't know what the fix is. Except a lot of people said like switch up the coverage or switch up the starting 5. I don't know if there is a starting 5 that stops Cade Cunningham.
What do they want though? Like, it wouldn't be to take Mikal out, is it?
No. It's a Josh Hart out, Mitchell Robinson, and just have way like you bring up the better option at the rim so that we could be more aggressive with Cat. He can roam like more. It's very much what the Timberwolves did with Rudy Gobert.
Let's hold off because I want to talk about the 2 big lineup in general. Let's pause there. We're going to go to break. Omari, you don't have to open with the 2 big lineup. Wes, put it in the chat so I don't forget because I'm getting old. Let's go to break. When we come back, O2, you lead us off.
All right. We will come back for segment 3. And I do want to stick on the 2 big lineup. Like,
okay,
Mitchell Robinson, I don't know how many fewer minutes he played than Cat, but it seems like he played twice as many minutes as Cat because all of his minutes out there are noticeable. And it seems like when he's out there, like the physicality aspect goes up and like the rim gravity aspect goes up because that's what he's good at. And I don't hate that idea, but I'm just curious. I don't know how much they've really deployed the 2 big lineup because I know Mitchell Robinson's been hurt a lot, obviously, and if that's even like something that's been battle tested enough for the playoffs. But is that a viable solution? Because it doesn't seem like you want to put any of the wings on him outside of OG for much longer than you have to.
It's an option, like at this point. Like it's a pivot you can go to that is better than what you saw in game 2. And it's why I'm very curious to see how desperate they come out in game 3. Look, again, they give up 100 points. I am very skeptical about how much was the Knicks forcing the Pistons into bad offense and more. Bryce, your breakdown confirmed what my eye test was saying. Like they're just missing. Like Malik Beasley going 1 of 8 from 3, Tim Hardaway Jr. going 0 of 6 and 3. That's just not something you can count on, I think, at home. So it's less.
Real quick, G.
Yeah, go ahead.
I didn't go into that breakdown with that theme as a concept. It just happened as I rewatched the 6 minutes and then rewatched it again. I was like, this seems like a really good look. This seems like a good opportunity. And it was like, okay, this ended up being the theme. I didn't go into that like, hey, I'm going to show how many good looks the Pistons got and didn't make. I think that was my big takeaway.
So that's why it's twofold, right? Like, Omar, you ask about the optionality and deploying the 2 big lineup, right? It changes how you approach things on offense a ton. And I think it leans into Tibbs' sensibilities. Like, again, I'm not a fire the coach guy. I don't think he knows how to make the most of a 5-out lineup because we haven't seen a true 5-out lineup because Josh Hart just has to be on the floor for 40 minutes of a game. And when he's not, we don't see them put Deuce McBride in his place or even like a campaign or a Landry Shamet in his place. So that way you have 5 shooters on the floor. It's like, okay, Hart's out, but Mitchell Robinson's in and we're going to a 2 big. And then when Deuce comes in, Mitch is still in. I think as far as it being a viable option, they didn't do it much in the regular season. A lot because like when we saw it was against second units a ton. Like it was their second unit option yesterday when at the beginning of the second quarter. And Mitch was working his way back into some conditioning. Jalen Brunson missed a month, so they were leaning into some really bad offense with some really good defense for a month. DeLon Wright entered the rotation. It is an option, though, if you want to deploy it. It opens up so many other questions on offense. And look, the inverse of what Bryce we were talking about with the Pistons getting good looks is like the Knicks offense in the fourth quarter. It's Jalen Brunson try to draw a foul to get 3 free throws. Deuce McBride bank in a 3 with the shot clock winding down. OG Anunoby hit a step back with the shot clock winding down. And there's just not a lot of good offensive process on that end. I think it gets even worse if you're now adding someone that is also isn't a floor spacer next to Mitchell, like in Mitchell Robinson, next to Josh Hart, it completely changes how they potentially play, you know?
I want to give you a chance to really warm yourself to Pistons fans' hearts with this question.
Okay.
James Edwards III came on the Pistons Pulse and talked about how the Knicks lacked a little bit of something attitude-wise. And then I jump over on Knicks Film School with your guy DJ Zulo, and we do X's and O's, and this same concept all of a sudden comes up. Do you feel like that's played out in the first 2 games of the series when the Knicks were at home? And can you elaborate on this kind of mentality that I think Pistons fans are going to love to hear that their team has and their opponent seemingly does not?
Yeah. After you and James did that pod, and then you and I did that pod, I had James on Knicks Film School, and we were like, so we're at the forefront, apparently, of talking about this team's penchant for being punked, is how we've phrased it. So one of the national television games that the Knicks had earlier this year was against the Hawks in the in-season tournament game. They lose the game. Trae Young rolls the dice on the Knicks Film School logo because the Hawks are going to Vegas. Knicks do nothing. And it was like, so they can not just lose, but they can be embarrassed at home. And that's just not what happened last season. You know, I left every Knicks game last season. Look, for the Pistons fans who don't know, I know it ended a game before the conference finals, which is just like a second round loss. It's one of the more enjoyable seasons as a fan and as a content creator that I've ever had. The connection to that team that a lot of us felt, because they were so shorthanded, and what they lacked in talent, they gained in effort. And even if you might play better than them, you're not going to try harder than them. And this team they've been more finesse, and they've overwhelmed you with their talent. And when the shots aren't falling, all right, well, we can't count on them to then go beat teams up on the boards or on defense. It's why, honestly, that 21-0 run in the fourth quarter was the first time all season, because it was on both ends they were dominating, whether it was forcing turnovers, like Karl Anthony Towns with a bunch of forced turnovers. Like, wait, where did this come from? And it's the first time it felt like last year. But throughout this season, if you're a young team, if you're a physical team, you've been able to dictate terms with this Knicks team. And it's why some of us, DJ, myself, James Edwards, and I mean, I'll throw my buddy Jonathan Macri in there. Like, we predicted a long series here, that this was the test the Knicks needed if they wanted to show that they were more than just like a warm up for the Cavs when they play the Celtics if they advance. And look, I think through 2 games, outside of a really good fourth quarter that was really fun for Knicks fans, the Pistons have controlled this series, and the Knicks were home for both of those games. So, yeah, it's a lot of it, Bryce. The fact that the way they match physicality, the way that, like that Trae Young incident, the Draymond Green stuff where he gets into it with Kat and about a very stupid thing Draymond said, and then all the Knicks are hugging him after the game when Kat leaves the floor. It's like, what is this team? Like, I don't have the emotional investment I had last year, and it's why, you know, coming into this series, I questioned whether they were going to have the chutzpah, as they say here in New York, to match what the Pistons bring from a physicality standpoint.
Real quick, O2, before you get to your question and thought, was I wanted you to elaborate on that, because I think it allows Pistons fans to appreciate even more what we've watched all season long. I gave the story of Ron Holland, right, against the Wizards, where Chris Middleton sticks up for his rookie Keyshawn George when Cade was kind of punking him. And then later in the game, Marcus Smart's trying to go after Isaiah Stewart. And the Pistons rookie is the one stepping in front of Marcus Smart saying, no, this isn't how this is going to go down. And, you know, just the cohesiveness that we've seen from the Pistons team. So I wanted to get that in there, O2, just because I thought it was good perspective for Pistons fans who I think do appreciate it, but just to get a perspective from another team that isn't that far removed from having the same sort of vibes.
Yeah.
No doubt. Let's look forward to Game 3.
Let's do it.
Obviously, coming back to the LCA, Malik Beasley was like, just wait till we get back to Detroit. I know Detroit fans here. Like Sean mentioned earlier, like, the energy is just going to be crazy. What do you want to see from the Knicks in the first 6 minutes? Like, coming out of the gate, how do they need to attack that game to set the right tone,
Well,
like offense, defense, however you want to take that.
the defense, I think, will play out over the course of the game. I don't know what the strategy is to slow down Cade Cunningham. I don't think any team has really figured that out this season. So it's not so much a let him get his, like you were supposed to be able to double him and let other people beat you. Guess what? Other people have beaten you through 2 games. So especially with role players playing better at home being the theory, I'm very curious to see how they guard Cade in game 1 and seeing, what Malik Beasley at home, Tim Hardaway Jr. at home, Asar Thompson at home. And look, I'll just say the refs at home potentially playing a different role than they did at Madison Square Garden. My biggest curiosity, Omar, O2 is a good nickname, by the way. I got GMAC. O2 is a great nickname. I'm gonna start saying that now. OT, the biggest curiosity I have is, do the Knicks see what we're seeing and how they're using Cat? And it's like, you know what? Fine. We're just going to go to Cat, let him post up, give him some post touches, let him get deeper into the post, and let him, back down Tobias Harris. And if they bring a double, fine. Cat, find the open man. It also might create some open looks for Jalen Brunson. He was really good on catch and shoot threes last season, and all those went away when Julius Randle went down. The game before they played the Pistons, that last week of the season, they played the Celtics on a Tuesday night, and Cat just cooked the entire first half. And it was him against Drew Holiday. It was him against Derek White. Like, the Celtics were guarding him the same way, and the Knicks leaned into the fact that the teams are not guarding him with a bigger player. And it was like, just force feed Cat. And I would like to see the Knicks lean into that. And at this point, like, it can't be worse than what we've seen so far with it, which is just Jalen Brunson hero ball. So I would hope to see a more diversified, like, to your point, like, I don't need 10 threes. I just need 10 field goal attempts. I need Cat to be the guy that's second on your team in field goal attempts, and for it to be closer than what we've seen to the disparity with him and Brunson. So yeah, I would hope they try to take advantage of their all-star, all-NBA center and how much of a threat he's supposed to be on offense, especially with Tobias Harris guarding him.
Okay, real quick, GMAC, we got 8 or 10 minutes here. We're no rush, but I want to flip it over to you. I want to let you host here for 8 or 10 minutes, like we're over at Knicks Film School, and you're bringing O2 and I on to ask us some questions. But first, I do want to just say, if I'm the Knicks, I'm doubling Cade Cunningham. I am leaning into it, and I'm making anybody else make a decision. Again, you've referenced the video. I highlight in the video where they completely whiff Jalen Duren wide open, rolling to the basket in the last 6 minutes of the game because the bigs roll too deep. Cade at times is a little slow getting it there. I would put 2 on him from the start, and this is out of respect to Cade Cunningham and who he is. My thoughts, we'll see if it happens or not. GMAC, take over the podcast for the last 7, 8, 10 minutes, whatever we get into here. What is on your mind in terms of, obviously you've watched these 2 games as well, but what do you want to know from O2 and myself?
So seeing how the Knicks have been unable to, I don't want to say unable to guard or stop Cade, but how comfortable Cade looks so far this series, and how they've largely dictated terms through the first 2 games, and now they have home court advantage. Give it a scale of 1 to 10. What are your confidence levels as Pistons, voices and content creators and people who cover the team? Are the Pistons now, should they be favored to win this series?
O2?
You know what's interesting? They've been better on the road than they've been at home. So.
I said this at the end of the regular season.
Yeah. They've been better on the road than they've been at home, and I don't know if that matters for the playoffs. I think that's maybe an unknown quantity, and whether or not that translates into, how things went in the regular season. They got 2 at Madison Square Garden. I think the Knicks got them initially at the LCA in November. But that hasn't always matched up for this team. I think they've had sort of a us against them mentality on the road that they haven't always been able to tap into at home, and maybe just the sheer energy of the crowd and the excitement and everything would kind of make up for that. And it's not like they were dramatically worse at home. It's, it's probably like a handful of games difference, but I don't know if there's going to be that big of a difference just in how they perform based on that. I think that's a little bit more of an unknown. But I think with that, to get game 2 and to have that momentum riding into game 3 when you're coming home, and I think you have shown that the recipe that worked against the Knicks during the regular season, you can in fact recreate during the playoffs, and the onus is on the Knicks to solve this. The Pistons, I think, have their recipe. The Knicks have to solve this. They've had 6 games of trying to solve it, and then the last 5 games, the Pistons have probably been a better team for all but maybe 3 of those quarters. I mean, I think it's mostly been pretty one-sided. So if there's any confidence, I think it's just that game 2 definitively proved that you can beat the Knicks the same way you've been beating them, and now you're at home. So there's probably no reason for you to feel too much doubt at this point. The Knicks have to figure stuff out. I think the Pistons are probably more confident.
Yeah, my thing is, I was thinking about this today. I predicted Knicks in 7 across the podcast platforms here, Knicks Film School, Game Theory. I was thinking about it today on my lunch walk, and I'm like, I think it's playing out that way right now. Like, I think we're headed to, and I said, I think we're going to get a Cade 40-point incredible performance in that Game 7, even if the Pistons don't pull it out. After that performance on Monday, GMAC, I will admit, I find myself leaning a little bit more like, are we going to get 2 series of playoff content over on the Pistons Pulse? 0-2, and listen, I came into the year going, if we get 1 game of the play-in tournament, how much fun that would be to break it down on film, have a podcast about whatever. 2 series? So now I'm starting to get greedy, but I think my confidence level of they're going to compete throughout this is very high, GMAC. After game 1, you and I texted a little bit, and I don't know that it gave me a whole lot more confidence, even though there was this crazy fourth quarter thing. After game 2, seeing how comfortable Cade was, seeing the different guys that can guard Brunson, seeing Bridget, just seeing all these different things, I'm like, I think they got a chance. They did that without Isaiah Stewart, who's their second best defender, if not their first best defender. First best, that doesn't make sense. But it just, everything we've seen about this team all season long played out between game 1 and game 2. The response, the comfortability, this, rising up to the occasion. To Omari's point, I am a little bit nervous that they're going to be a little too juiced coming out in game 3 because LCA is going to be bananas. And I'm interested to see if they're able to kind of harness that in a positive way or if it ends up being in a negative way, GMAC.
Yeah, the interesting thing about how the Knicks dictate their own terms is it's usually dependent on a lot of shot making. And it's why I'm curious if this team has that extra level, if they come out, the Knicks come out with just an energy that's hey, they came in and punked us in game 1 and 2. They came in and stole a home game from us. We're going to come out here, score 40 points in the first quarter, and take the crowd. I see LCA is going to be electric. We're going to turn the mute button on the arena and be the more talented team that they should have been, that they were coming into this series. It's again, I talk entirely too much about last year's Knicks team, but that first round series against the Sixers, there's not 1 but 2 games in which the Knicks faced a raucous Philly crowd. Now, granted, one of those raucous Philly crowds were in favor of the Knicks because Knicks fans travel. And obviously something has been made of the fact that LCA is not allowing Knicks fans into the arena.
I was surprised by how personally New Yorkers took that. They really took that personally.
So was it personally, or I wore it as a badge of honor that it's man, they're already doing this. That's something you should do if you want. Philly, you should have done that. Last
That's
year,
true.
So that way we didn't come take over. That's a short drive down the turnpike. We got to get on.
They're the biggest city. It's you should have,
Yeah.
Now,
Knicks fans travel. There's a lot of MSGs there's a lot of Madison Square Gardens along the East Coast. Shout out Atlanta, shout out Orlando, shout out Miami, shout out Charlotte. So look, my confidence in this series is not anywhere different than what it was before. I thought it'd be a long series. I count on the Knicks to have home court going into game 7. And I think, but look, the other part of this, and this will be my other question for both of you, is the Jalen Brunson aspect, which I don't think I've talked about enough. talking to both of you. Like, I thought it was one of the more bizarre, like them not running stuff for Cat is like a Tibbs issue that I've been frustrated with since January. Fine. Brunson being empowered by Tibbs is a thing that's been true for 2-3 years. And for him to just like ignore the rest of his team and go full Trae Young, Allen Iverson, like I'm not looking to take shots here. I'm looking to get calls. Like holding up 6 fingers when you foul out Asar. I was like, all right, like what are we doing? You're celebrating fouling someone out and you're down in this game. Like, I guess my what are your thoughts on how Jalen Brunson played in game 2 and the foul baiting that's now made its way as an attention point over the first 2 games of this series?
My quick thought on what you just said, I think is the most telling thing. Brunson celebrating Asar fouling out, to me, is a very interesting mental component of that matchup. Because if you're celebrating fouling somebody out, that means you don't want anything to do with that person. And I think that's interesting. O2 has stronger thoughts on this. I kind of don't like the ethical versus unethical, foul baiting versus whatever conversation. Like, I understand people's thoughts on it. I just stay away from the officiating in general. I think I had like 2 bullet points of my 6 pages from the game on Monday. It's kind of like jerseys, right? O2. Omari tries to throw jersey conversation to me, and I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. I think Jalen Brunson is an incredibly talented player. I understand the aesthetics of watching him. I don't like when it carries over to like he's not a good, productive basketball player. That's where I get a little frustrated. But I think O2 has more thoughts on this, I guess, is what I'm saying.
For sure. First, quick self-correction. Wes, I'm sorry, put up the numbers of the Pistons road home split. So they were 22-9 on the road and at home. So they were pretty home heavy toward the end, and they evened it up. For a lot of the season, they were better on the road than they were at home. And I think they started to win some more games down the stretch, but I'm still curious to see if there's an inherent advantage for them there. On Brunson, I don't want to take up too much time. Last night, I tweeted very succinctly, "This ain't hoops, man," and like that's just how I feel it. I have a very visceral, it just gives me a very visceral negative reaction to watch when you are playing specifically to get to the line and not even trying to get real shots up. And I'll just leave it at that. Like, it's been a very talked about subject. And I love Brunson because any basketball player that's like within like a rounding error of my height, like I'm always going to rock with, and Brunson falls in that category. But like, I just have a very visceral reaction to it, and I'm just going to leave it at that.
Look, I respect it, and I don't completely defend it. I think he and Josh Hart and Cat at times too can let the refs get in their heads a little bit. That's been an issue throughout the season. The amount of times teams have just been 5-on-4 going back the other way because they're complaining to an official about a call. I didn't think the refs were great last night. I think it evened out in the second half, the way Brunson was able to get some calls. The fact that the Knicks took their first 2 free throws with like less than a minute left in the first half was interesting.
Surprising. Yeah.
And I like, obviously the Knicks were baiting a little bit, but there was also some physicality from the Pistons side that just the Knicks weren't allowed to be as physical on the other end of the first half. And then the second half, I thought, again, it evened out, especially the foul that Brunson got on Tobias Harris.
Asar's 4th and 5th. Like,
yeah,
especially Asar's 5th foul is the one that drives me the most crazy.
Where he just fell down.
No, the one where, when he was on ball, Asar cut him off with his chest, and then because Brunson fell down, they called Asar for it. Like, everybody points to the one where it went to the review and whatever. The one that bugs me the most is like Asar's doing exactly what you would teach somebody to do at the point of attack. So
yeah. Now look, there is a craft to that in recognizing how players are and aren't allowed to be able to guard you, and I've come to appreciate when it is being used as a craft. Like, this is a bad defender playing you in a way that you shouldn't be played and taking advantage of that. It got a little much even for me last night. Now, look, you're just not going to find a lot of bad things I say about Jalen Brunson. He's not just changed this franchise; he's changed my life, guys, for the better over the past couple years. And last year in that playoff run, when the Sixers have their own version of that in Joel Embiid, and we're able to counter it with Jalen Brunson, it was like, all right, like if you're going to give Embiid those calls, as long as Brunson's getting them too, I'll be okay with it. And I think game 2 was the first time it was like, dude, you've got Cat being guarded by a forward that we sent home last year. Why are you like taking over the game, not trying to get shots up, but just trying to get whistles? And I thought it led to their downfall a little bit. Now, granted, they also got back in the game and tied it with a minute left, so it didn't completely ruin the end. But he's also one of the best tough shot makers, which again is why he's going to end up probably finishing second for clutch player of the year, and largely why, even though they were able to have a 51 win season, these teams are just, they're so much closer than I think a lot of people thought going into this series and projected going into this series, and especially how both teams have played since January. So I'm curious what kind of Brunson we get in game 3, and whether he's a bit more composed, running an actual offense, getting his teammates involved, and maybe a little more ethical on his end as well.
No, okay.
I love it. I love the ethical and non.
I can't.
I know you hate it.
No. I can't stand it, and we will talk about it in the off season.
It's so accurate.
It is the exact opposite of accurate. Who determines what is Fine, let's do it. Was it ethical when Kobe Bryant studied the officials' playbook? God rest his soul. Did he study the officials' playbook to know what their blind spots were and use them against them?
I would say that's ethical. Now, if he was doing the Trae Young, I'm going to drive to the rim and then stop about the defender sending me, and I just kind of jumped and get the shot up.
Omari, O2, God's honest truth. I love you so much. You're one of my closest friends. We will agree to disagree for all of eternity on this. And
I used to hate that Trae Young move, by the way. And now I love it. When Brunson does it, it's like, oh, yes, that's a foul. You can't do that.
And again, I will someday use that Kobe Bryant example to my own son, that this is how insane Kobe Bryant was as a competitor. So, all right. We do have a little bit of breaking news. So 6th man of the year, I will read this off real quick. Alex Caruso, 1 total point, a 3rd place vote. Russell Westbrook with 4 points. Nickeil Alexander-Walker with 7. Naz Reid with 31. DeAndre Hunter came in 4th with 33, including 2 first-place votes. Ty Jerome, 91 points with 2 first-place votes. And unfortunately, in 2nd place, Malik Beasley with 279. 13 first-place votes, 66 second-place votes, 16 third-place votes, which means somebody did not have them. No. More than somebody. What is that? No, one person did not have them on their ballot. And then Peyton Pritchard with a overwhelming victory, 454, 82 first place votes, 13 second place, 5 third place. Omari, your thoughts on that?
I'm surprised it was that overwhelming, to be honest, just because Bees became one of a very small group of players to crack 300 made threes. And he was also the 2nd leading scorer for this team, essentially, after J.I. went down. But that's also that's one of those awards that I think highly favors what teams are being watched the most. And I think, and Pritchard's it's not like he's an undeserving candidate. He had an amazing season, so I don't want to take anything away from him at all. I'm just surprised it's that big, given that I think Beasley's season really fit what the 6th man award is about. It doesn't surprise me that Pritchard won. I just thought Beasley would have got a little bit more love for 1st place.
Okay, my math was way off as I was trying to do that. He was left off 5 ballots. 72, 82, 85, 95. Yeah, he was left off 5. This is the stuff that drives
the visibility.
This is the stuff that drives me crazy. I'm not going to go crazy that Malik didn't win it. Malik Beasley not being on every ballot is kind of shocking to me. GMAC, your quick thoughts on this award?
So it's actually a good thing that I'm here, because 2 years ago, Emmanuel Quickley, I thought deserved to win 6th man of the year, and he lost out to Boston's Malcolm Brogdon. I thought the spirit of the 6th man was represented well by Emmanuel Quickley. It's also not just your best bench player, but your 6th starter, a guy that elevates your team when he comes in the game, a guy that potentially when one of your starters goes out, it's not that much of a drop off. And the Boston media propaganda around the NBA led to Malcolm Brogdon winning the award. And here I am 2 years later to witness it happening again to my friends in Detroit. So we may disagree on how ethical or unethical Jalen Brunson's hooping is. We may disagree on how the officials may call certain games. We may disagree on whose pizza is better. It's New York, but like different things. But the things we can unite on is that Boston needs to get up out of here with the way that they infect the awards votings and how things just seem to favor them when it ends up being a tiebreaker between a small city folk here in New York and Detroit, of course.
You
and then
did this for Game Theory. Did you have Beasley?
I had Beasley. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
It's what O2 said. The second best player, like their second scorer, was Malik Beasley. Also, like from a Knicks perspective, my gosh, he didn't miss against the Knicks this year, so of course I went with him.
Yeah. By the way, Michael Beasley could get buckets too. Like,
yes, if he was coming off the bench, he would also be the sixth-man candidate. Yeah.
All right, I got to go watch my kid play soccer, so I got to get out of here. But we knew this one was going to run a little long, and that was by design. We're in the freaking playoffs, guys. Like, hopefully you guys can handle an hour and 20 minutes. If not, I mean, this is light work compared to Game Theory. So I'm glad O2 didn't lose his voice doing this one. I knew I would be able to hold up, and GMAC would as well. Kian says, thanks, GMAC. Great stuff for Knicks Film School, Game Theory, and Got a Mets podcast. Love it. A man of many hats. Again, I love doing this stuff because, as I said earlier, O2 is truly a friend to me. GMAC is also truly a friend to me. Obviously, Wes as well. And Summer League, we'll all have to get together and have a meal and do all of that stuff. So before we let you go, GMAC, let the fine people know where they can find you, your work, and all of the great stuff you guys do over there.
So you can find Knicks Film School by just searching for Knicks Film School on all socials, on YouTube, where podcasts are available. We've got we're overcovered at this point with Knicks Film School coverage, with Knicks coverage before the game, during the game, after the game. We've got off day podcasts on our socials. We're doing stuff on TikTok, on Instagram. My @ Big Dog Pistons question. It's Andrew J Claudio _ You'll see this beautiful face smiling and in the profile picture as well. So check me out there. And if you do care about baseball, Mets Therapy AC on all socials as well. I do a little mini therapy session talking about the most recent Mets game or set of games when I get the chance to. But yeah, we're covering the Knicks as thoroughly as possible from an X's and O's perspective, from a fan vibes perspective. So come check us out.
GMA, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yes, sir.
Amazing stuff. Can't wait to watch Game 3 and the rest of the series. I think we all agree that no matter which way it goes, this is going to be an extremely fun series. So I can't wait. You do excellent work, man. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. I appreciate that, O2. You too, Bryce.
Thanks. Appreciate it. O2, take it away, my guy.
Absolutely. Big thanks to our audio producer, Robin Chan, our editor-in-chief, Nicole Avery Nichols. Also, shout out to Wes Davenport, and we'll talk to you all next week.